It's not even a close question. There are two issues of international law, distinguishing between civilians and combatants and proportionality. So a combatant is somebody who gets a communication device from a terrorist organization. So everyone who had that communication device is a combatant. And then the question is proportionality. You know that some civilians will be killed. The general ratio that's been acceptable around the world is about 4 to 1. That is 4 civilians killed for every combatant. That was the rule in Iraq. That was the rule in Afghanistan. That's what America did. That's what Israel did. In Gaza, it's been approximately 2 to 1, the best ratio of any country fighting urban war where civilians are used as human shields.
Allan's claim of a tidy 2-to-1 death ratio in Gaza sounds like a math problem on his end. In a messy war zone, counting who is a civilian and who is a combatant is as tricky as trying to count jelly beans in a shaken jar. Bodies get lost under rubble and many numbers just aren't clear, which means the real situation could be far worse than that neat ratio of his. But reducing such a tragic situation to a simple number does a disservice to the real human suffering involved. Today I bring to you Allan Dershowitz squaring off against Rania Khalek and Haaretz columnist Gideon Levy on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Let's jump into it.
When it comes to the devices, the ratio is far, far better. A tiny percentage of the people killed were civilians. The vast, vast majority were combatants. So this is probably the best example in modern warfare history of proportionality and of fewer civilians being killed in comparison to the combatants. So Israel should be praised from a legal point of view, from a moral point of view, and from a tactical point of view. And the attacks on Israel are all a reflection of a double standard weaponization of the legal system that hurts the rule of law because it makes it clear that the rule of law is just being used selectively against the nation state of the Jewish people. This is not even a close question. Anybody who says that Israel violated the rules of law with these explosive devices simply is being discriminatory and wrong. It's not a close question legally.
Okay, before I go to Rania, just a question that sprung to my mind as you were talking there. If Israel has the capability to do this in the way that they did it in Lebanon, why couldn't they have gone after Hamas in the same way in Gaza?
Well, because the Gazans, the Hamas doesn't use the same kind of communication devices. I wish they could. If they had gotten Sinwar on a telephone, that would have been the end of the war. The war would be over. Remember that as soon as Sinwar surrenders, as soon as Gaza lays down its arms, as soon as Hamas lays down its arms, the war is over. As soon as Hezbollah stops firing rockets, the war is over. Israel cannot do anything to stop the war. All it can do is lay down its arms and open itself up to a repeat of October 7th, which Hamas has pledged to do, or a repeat of October 8th, which Hezbollah has pledged to do. Let's apply the same standard to Israel as the United States applied after 9/11, as the allies in NATO applied. And as long as you apply a single standard to Israel, you'll see that it's been doing the right thing. I wish that Israel could have done that in Gaza and the war would be over, but technologically it's not been possible. Israel has used every possible technology to try to get Sinwar, but Sinwar surrounds himself with hostages. As soon as Israel got close to rescuing an American citizen and 5 other hostages, the Hamas put bullets in the back of their head and killed them. That's the kind of enemy that Israel is dealing with, and I would hope the world realizes that if it's allowed to continue in Israel, if Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran are allowed to continue their terrorism in Israel, it's coming to a theater near you. Iran will not stop at Israel. They want to continue what they've done to Iraq, to Lebanon, to Yemen, and bring it to Europe and bring it to the United States. So Israel is fighting for all Western democracies, not just for the defense of its own people.
Let me bring in Ron, who's been waiting patiently. What's your response to Allan Dershowitz?
Well, you know, Allan Dershowitz has spent his entire career justifying Israel murdering Arab children. That's when he's not busy defending pedophiles and rapists like Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein. So I'm not
Okay,
surprised
so
that he's
we're going
come
to
on
get
this
into
program
personal
today
attacks
to defend
now.
terrorist attacks. Let me finish, Alan.
Let's stay away from the personal attacks
Alan.
and get to the merits. But you're not going to attack me personally for being a defense lawyer. I defend Arabs. I defend Muslims. I have defended communists. I've defended Nazis. I'm a defense lawyer. And please stop making personal attacks on me and get to the merits if you have anything to say on the merits. So far, you said nothing on the merits. It's just been a personal attack, which you ought to be ashamed of.
All right. I'm not ashamed of saying what I just said. It's objectively true. That said, you did just justify what Leon Panetta, the former CIA director, called an act of terrorism, Israel blowing up cellular devices. And we should all be concerned with that standard Israel set. Because by your logic, Alan, does that make it okay to blow up the cellular devices of Israeli soldiers who are off duty, far from any battlefield, going about their daily lives with their kids in grocery stores, in hospitals? That is what Israel did to Lebanon last week.
That would be legal.
Because we know that would be called a terrorist attack if it happened.
That would be legal under the law.
And then, let me just say, I am very upset right now. I am very upset right now because Israel has just murdered 300 of my fellow countrymen in Lebanon in an indiscriminate carpet bombing campaign based on lies. I have people calling me, telling me the horrors they're experiencing at this very moment under Israeli bombardment.
Just stop firing rockets. Just stop firing rockets and it will end. That's all. Just stop firing at Israeli communities and civilians and it will end. It's all Hezbollah's fault.
I mean, Rania, let me ask. Well, hang on, Rania, let me ask you. Hang on, let me ask.
Thousands of
let me
rockets
ask a
were
question.
fired.
Rania, let me ask you a question. You don't dispute, presumably, that Hezbollah has spent the last year firing rockets into Israel, do you? You don't dispute that.
Of course she disputes it. Of course she disputes it.
Well, let me ask
know the truth from falsity.
Let me ask you directly.
I came on here to talk about Lebanon. If Alan's going to continue to interrupt me and not let me speak,
no, I just asked you a question.
Would you like me to answer your question, or are we going to let Alan talk?
No, I've asked you a question. You respond to me.
On October 8th, Hezbollah started firing at Israel in solidarity with Palestinians. And since then, we've heard from Hezbollah repeatedly say they will stop firing when Israel stops its aggression on Gaza. Israel has repeatedly refused to stop its aggression on Gaza, and things have escalated in the north. And I'll also say that, and this is according to the BBC, 80% of the cross-border attacks have actually gone from Israel to Lebanon. This is a two-way fight taking place.
Okay, but let me ask you.
And
after what you just said, hang on. What you just said was interesting. So you concede that Hezbollah on October the 8th, the day after Israel suffers its most horrific attack on its people since the Holocaust, something which, if you extrapolated it to the population of America, is like 30 or 40 9/11s, that the very next day, Hezbollah decides to launch a rocket attack on Israel. In what possible world is that something that you would not expect Israel to defend extremely aggressively, given they've just endured this appalling terrorist attack?
I mean, Piers, I can't believe you just called it a Holocaust. That's actually offensive to the Holocaust. I didn't call it. I called. We can talk about.
No, sorry, don't misquote me.
The worst attack since the Holocaust. That's offensive to the Holocaust.
I said it was the worst attack on people of Jewish faith since the Holocaust of the Second World War. That's what I said.
She defends it. She defends it. She
that's
thinks
what I
it was
said.
a
Just to
good
be clear,
October
that
7th.
was what I said.
Yeah.
So my point, though, is you accept that Hezbollah launched these rockets literally hours after Israel has suffered this heinous terrorist attack. You know, of course they're going to defend themselves. Why wouldn't they? Any country in the world in that situation would defend itself. And it wasn't an attack.
Well, I'd like to ask you, at what point do Arabs get the right to defend themselves? At what point does our security matter? Israel has spent the last almost 12 months carrying out a genocide in Gaza. They've killed over 41,000 people, and we all know that's a huge underestimate. Over 16,000 children.
Who started that one?
Just
Who
today,
started that
Israel
war?
has killed 300 Lebanese
war?
people, including 21
Who
Lebanese
started that
children.
war?
At what point do we get to defend ourselves? And Alan, come on. Israel's been massacring and occupying and terrorizing its neighbors for the past 76 years. Israel needs to stop terrorizing its neighbors, stop being an apartheid settler colony, and maybe its neighbors won't fire at it because its neighbors are defending themselves against an invading and occupying state.
Let me bring in Gideon to be waiting very patiently. Gideon Levy from Haaretz. Yeah. Gideon, you've heard both sides here. expressed very forcefully. What is your overview of where we are now? Because it seems from where we are, I'm currently in London, but it seems to the outside world that Israel is basically ramping up for a full-fledged war with Hezbollah in Lebanon at the same time that it's still conducting a full-fledged war with Hamas in Gaza.
Absolutely. You see, the main problem is that under the excuse or under the umbrella of self-defense, which in many cases is justified, Israel thinks that it has the right to do whatever it wants. The 7th of October enabled Israel to go wild in Gaza, to cross any possible legal or moral border, and to kill 41,000 people. Why? Because of the 7th of October. After the 7th of October, we have the right to do whatever we want, and nobody will tell you, you heard the propaganda of the ambassador. Same now with Hezbollah. Hezbollah launched rockets on Israel. We have to defend itself. Until here, very well. But because we are defending ourselves, we have the right to do whatever we want. For example, the devices. For example, to kill today almost 300 people in one day. Is there a limit? I would like just to ask you one thing, Piers, and please answer with honesty.
Yeah.
If Hezbollah would have spread those devices in Israel to soldiers, and hundreds of people would have got blind out of it, how would the world react after it? What would you say about those terrorists, about those monsters who do such things? Why, when Israel is doing, it's always justified. Whatever it does, it's always justified by self-defense.
Exactly
Well, I would say,
Let's sum it up, y'all. Allan is out here doing legal gymnastic, twisting international law until it screams for mercy. First, he claimed Israel should be praised for its precision strikes, because apparently bombing entire neighborhoods and killing hundreds in a day is just an unfortunate side effect of self-defense. But let's flip the script. If Hezbollah planted those same devices in Israeli cities, blinding and killing soldiers, the outrage would be deafening. Yet, when Israel does it, suddenly it's legal. That's not international law, that's selective enforcement. Secondly, Allan acts like the only way this war could ever end is if Hamas surrenders, as if Israel hasn't spent decades ensuring that's impossible. Israel holds Gaza in an iron grip, blockade, and then blames Palestinians for fighting back. And let's be real, Israel isn't just defending itself, it's flexing its military power under the excuse of security while civilians pay the price. If Israel wanted peace, it wouldn't be turning Gaza into a mass graveyard and expecting the world to applaud. At the end of the day, Allan's entire argument is a masterclass in gaslighting, twisting facts, dodging accountability, and making war crimes sound like necessary paperwork. But no amount of legal jargon can clean the blood off Israel's hands. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, y'all. I'll catch you on the next one.